Jewel wasp. Jewel wasps don't kill cockroaches. They turn them into obedient zombies. A female jewel wasp hunts a cockroach nearly 3 times her size and stings it twice with surgical precision. The first sting hits the thorax to briefly stun the front legs. The second is the masterpiece. She drives her stinger directly into the cockroach's brain, feeling around with sensors on the stinger itself until she finds the exact region that controls the urge to walk. She injects venom into that one spot. The roach doesn't die. It doesn't even try to flee. It simply loses the will to escape. Then the wasp bites off half of each antenna, grabs one like a leash, and walks her victim back to her burrow like a dog. There she lays an egg on its belly and seals it inside. The larva eats the still-living roach from the inside over 6 days, saving the vital organs for last to keep it fresh. The cockroach feels everything. It just can't decide to run. Ophiocordyceps fungus. Ophiocordyceps is a fungus that takes over an ant's body and drives it like a stolen car. A single spore lands on a carpenter ant and burrows through its shell. Over days, the fungus spreads through the ant, weaving threads around the muscles and flooding the body with chemicals, but it deliberately leaves the brain intact. The ant stays conscious for what comes next. At a precise moment, the fungus forces the ant to climb. It marches up a plant stem to a height of around 25 centimeters, a zone with the exact temperature and humidity the fungus needs to grow. Then it commands the ant to clamp its jaws onto a leaf vein in a death grip. This is the final act. The ant locks on and dies. Days later, a stalk erupts from the back of the dead ant's head and rains spores onto the colony below. Whole ant graveyards form under these spots. The fungus didn't just kill the ant. It used the corpse as a launch pad. Lancet liver fluke. Lancet liver flukes need to get inside a grazing sheep, and they use an ant as a hijacked vehicle to get there. The fluke's journey starts in snail slime, which ants eat. Once inside the ant, dozens of flukes spread through the body, but one does something different. A single fluke migrates to the ant's brain cluster and seizes the controls. By day, the infected ant behaves normally. But as evening cools the air, the brain fluke forces the ant to climb to the very tip of a blade of grass and lock its jaws shut. There it waits, frozen, all night, exactly where a grazing sheep or cow is most likely to eat it. If dawn comes and the ant hasn't been eaten, the fluke releases it, lets it go feed and survive the heat, then drags it back up the grass the next evening. The ant has no idea it's being farmed. Its life now runs on a parasite's feeding schedule, climbing to die so a worm can reach a stomach. Hairworm. Hairworms grow up to 30 centimeters long inside a cricket, then force that cricket to drown itself. It starts when a cricket drinks water holding microscopic hairworm larvae. Inside the cricket, the worm grows for weeks, coiling through the body cavity until it fills nearly the entire abdomen, sometimes 3 times longer than its host. The cricket is a land animal that avoids water completely. The worm needs water to breed, so the parasite solves the problem by hijacking the cricket's brain. It floods the nervous system with proteins that scramble the cricket's navigation, and it drives the insect toward reflected light off water at night. The cricket walks to the edge of a pool or stream and jumps in, an act that means certain death for a creature that cannot swim. As the cricket drowns, the worm bursts out through its rear, sometimes more than one, wriggling free into the water to mate. The cricket dies for a journey it never chose. The worm just needed a ride to the water. Toxoplasma gondii. Toxoplasma gondii is a single-celled parasite that can only breed inside a cat, so it rewires rodents to get there. A rat or mouse picks up the parasite from soil or cat feces. Toxoplasma then forms cysts in the brain, settling into the regions that handle fear and smell. Normally a rodent that catches even a whiff of cat urine flees in pure terror, a survival instinct hardwired over millions of years. Toxoplasma erases it. Infected rodents lose their fear of cats entirely. Worse, the parasite flips the wiring so the rodent becomes mildly attracted to the smell of cat urine, drawn toward the very predator that should mean death. The rodent strolls into the open, gets caught and eaten, and the parasite finally reaches the catgut where it reproduces. The unsettling part: Toxoplasma infects humans too, and it sits in roughly 30% of the world's brains right now. Studies link it to altered risk-taking and reaction times. A brain parasite for cats is quietly living inside a third of all people. Leucochloridium Flatworm. Leucochloridium turns a snail's eyeballs into flashing, pulsating bird bait. The flatworm gets into a snail when the snail eats infected bird droppings. Inside, the parasite grows into long sacs called brood sacs, then pushes them up into the snail's eye stalks until the tentacles swell grotesquely. Now comes the horror show. The brood sacs are striped green and brown, and they pulsate, throbbing up to 70 times a minute, so the snail's eye stalks look exactly like fat, wriggling caterpillars. The parasite isn't done. It hijacks the snail's behavior, driving it out of the dark and up into bright, exposed leaves in the open, the opposite of everything a snail's instinct screams. A bird spots the pulsing fake caterpillars, pecks the eye, stalks off, and swallows them. The snail often survives and simply regrows the stalks, ready to be infected and pulse again. Inside the bird, the parasite breeds and the cycle restarts in fresh droppings. The snail spends its life as a billboard advertising its own eyes as food. Sacculina Barnacle. Sacculina is a barnacle that invades a crab, castrates it, and reprograms it into a slave nanny. A female Sacculina larva finds a crab, locates a soft joint in its shell, and injects her own cells inside, abandoning her shell completely. Those cells spread through the crab as a root-like network that wraps around its organs and feeds off it from within. The crab stops growing, it stops molting, it stops being able to reproduce, because the parasite has chemically castrated it. Then Sacculina pushes a bulging sac out through the crab's underside, exactly where a female crab would carry her own eggs. Now the parasite forces the crab to care for the sac as if it were the crab's own brood. The crab grooms it, fans it with fresh water, and gently releases the parasite's larva into the current, performing the full nursery ritual for offspring that aren't its own. If the host is male, Sacculina even feminizes its body to make it behave like a mother. The crab still lives. It just works for the enemy now. Rabies virus. Rabies is a virus that engineers aggression to spread itself through a bite. Once it enters through a wound, rabies doesn't rush. It crawls along the nerves toward the brain at roughly 12 to 24 millimeters per day, which is why symptoms can take weeks or months to appear. When it reaches the brain, it floods specific regions and rewrites the host's behavior with terrifying purpose. The virus needs to travel in saliva, and it needs the host to bite. So it makes the animal aggressive, restless, and prone to attacking anything that moves. At the same time, it inflames the throat, making swallowing painfully difficult, which is why infected animals foam at the mouth and develop a horror of water. The saliva pools, loaded with virus, and every bite injects a fresh dose into a new host. Once symptoms appear, rabies is almost 100% fatal, one of the deadliest pathogens known. The virus doesn't want to kill you. It wants you to bite someone first. Dicrocoelium dendriticum. Dicrocoelium dendriticum runs one of the most elaborate hijacks in nature, using 2 different hosts and a suicide command. The Fluke's eggs are eaten by a snail, which coughs them out in slime balls. Ants eat the slime. Inside the ant, the Flukes multiply, and once again a single specialist Fluke breaks away and burrows into the nerve cluster controlling the jaws. From that moment, the ant lives a double life. During the warm day, it forages normally with the colony, but the instant the temperature drops at dusk, the brain Fluke seizes command and forces the ant to climb a grass stem and bite down, locking in place through the cold night, parked at mouth height for grazing animals. Survive till morning, and the Fluke releases the controls so the ant can feed and avoid being baked by the sun. Then it repeats. Night after night, the ant is marched up to wait for a mouth. It is a parasite running a host on a schedule, gambling the ant's whole existence on getting swallowed by a sheep. Euhaplorchis californiensis. Euhaplorchis californiensis turns a fish into a flashing target that begs to be eaten by birds. This fluke needs to end up inside a bird's gut to reproduce, and its middle host is the California killifish. The parasite gets into the fish and migrates straight to the surface of its brain, where hundreds of them can carpet the brain like a blanket. From there, they tamper with the brain chemistry that controls behavior. Infected killifish start doing things that should get them killed. They jerk, shimmy, and flash their bellies near the surface, swimming in conspicuous bursts instead of hiding. Studies found these infected fish are up to 30 times more likely to be eaten by birds than healthy fish. The parasite isn't damaging the fish at random. It's specifically dialing up the exact movements that draw a predator's eye. The bird swoops, swallows the fish, and the fluke finally reaches the gut, where it breeds. The killifish is still alive and swimming. It just can't stop advertising itself as an easy meal. Parasitoid wasp larvae. Parasitoid wasp larvae don't just eat their hosts, they mind control them into becoming bodyguards. A female wasp lays her eggs inside or on a living caterpillar or spider. The larvae hatch and feed on the host from within for days or weeks, carefully avoiding the organs that would kill it too soon. When they finally chew their way out to spin their cocoons, the host should be dead or dying. Instead, the parasite leaves it alive and seizes its behavior. A caterpillar that's been drained will stop eating and stand guard over the wasp cocoons, violently thrashing and head-swinging to knock away any predator that approaches. With one species of orb weaver spider, the larva chemically commands the dying spider to weave a special reinforced web, not its normal design, but a custom platform built to protect the wasp's cocoon. Then the spider sits still and waits to die. The host spends its final hours defending the very creatures that hollowed it out. It guards its killers with its last breath. Trematodes. Trematodes are flatworm parasites that rewrite fish behavior to deliver themselves into the mouths of predators. These flukes run multi-host life cycles, and the fish is just a stepping stone to the final host, usually a bird or larger predator. The trematode infects the fish and lodges in the brain, eyes, or muscle, then begins steering. Infected fish behave like they want to die. They swim higher in the water column, out in the open where birds patrol, instead of staying low and hidden. They flash, twitch, and dart in sudden bursts that catch a hunter's attention. Some species are physically blinded by parasites packed into their eyes, leaving them disoriented and easy to catch. Across studies, parasitized fish are eaten by the target predator far more often than clean fish, sometimes by many times over. Every behavior change points one direction, straight into the predator the parasite needs next. The fish isn't sick and confused. It is being aimed. A flatworm in its skull is steering it toward the exact jaws that complete the cycle.